literally gut-wrenching shit of withdrawal.
Right.
That's some pretty powerful psychic shit right there.
Impressive. All right, it's 12 o'clock. We'll get the ball rolling here.
All righty, let's go.
Okie dokie. Welcome to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. I am your host. We are coming to you live from Radio Valencia, YouTube, Facebook, AOL.com, CompuServe. Wait, I don't think we're coming from those places, but I'm here with my good friend Chaz. Say hello, Chaz.
Hello, Chaz.
Now, normally, we have our good friend Robinson, but as it turns out, Robinson is in Vietnam, and apparently there is a few-minute time difference there because he will be joining us, fingers crossed, but it may not be for a few minutes. I think he is trying to find somewhere clear of the Viet Cong. Now, he yelled at us last week by telling us that there was no more Viet Cong, and he got defensive, and he didn't realize that we were joking. However, I still think that there is a shadow government in Vietnam, and that they are probably still referred to as the Viet Cong. Now, I have no proof of this, but yeah. Anyway, I'll leave the listeners to draw their own conclusions. So this is the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. We are coming to you live from Arizona, where it is humid and raining and thundery and lightning-y. I don't think that's the word for that. What is the lightning? If it is currently, if there is lightning striking currently, right? You would. So if it's raining, if there is rain, it is raining. If there is thunder, it is thundering.
Or thunderous.
Perhaps, depending on how Roman you are. And if there's lightning, then it's
pretty.
It's lightning. It's lightning.
It's bright and it's loud.
So it's shocking. Perfect. All right, we figured it out.
It's shocking.
Chaz's response was making for great radio. He pointed at me, and the listeners heard nothing.
But if they're watching.
Which we know they're not.
Damn.
Right down here in the corner where it says 0 viewers. But we don't do the webcast so that people watch live. That would be embarrassing. But we do know that people watch the video after the fact. I think that's because people love DVRs now. And so they don't watch live. Nobody watches anything live anymore. So they go back and watch it on YouTube later. That's where we get our lovely comments from when we were referred to as fags. Right. That's how we know we made it on the internet. Yep. So hopefully Robinson will be joining us sooner rather than later. And he will be able to jump. Because Robinson is such a professional, I have no doubt that he will be able to just jump right in and pick up the conversation wherever we are in it, because that's essentially what he does every week anyway. He does not do any research. He's sort of the Marlon Brando of podcasting. Did you know that late in Marlon Brando's career as an actor, before he retired from acting, he wanted his performance to be so real, to be so genuine, and without any of his own thoughts or creative license being put into the work that he was doing, that he wouldn't read the script before they would film. And he would have the director put his lines on essentially cue cards, but he would hide them on the set. So if he walked into a room and like had to lean up against a dresser in the bedroom and then say his lines to the actress sitting on the bed, they would tape the script lines in big letters on the top of this dresser that wouldn't be seen on camera. So he could just glance at the lines on the dresser and then say them as naturally as they came to him in that moment.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty kooky.
Yeah. So how does it do with Robinson?
That's how he performs the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast on a weekly basis. There is zero preparation that goes into it when it comes to Robinson. He gets on, he brings a bowl of ice cream, he turns on. The man tries out different microphones every week, even though we know the ones that work, that sound decent, but yet he will still try something different the following week.
There he is.
Work for shit. Hey, it's Robinson on the streets of Vietnam. How are you doing, Robinson?
Are you on a bike?
He's either... Oh, my Lanta, that is squeaky. He's either on a bicycle.
I don't have any headphones.
Oh, he can't hear shit.
Can't hear you right now.
Well, is that a helmet you are wearing? I'm going to say yes, it's a helmet.
I can't hear you.
Say hi.
Hi. My friend Ha is over there buying some groceries. I have to take her to her house, and then I'm going to head back to my hotel and get my other
He's like legit in
device.
Vietnam, dude.
All right. Perfect. Then
back.
we'll see you in a little bit. Thanks for checking
All
in.
Hello, gentlemen, and welcome to Vietnam.
Thank you
See
so
in a
much. We'll see you in a little while, Robinson. Wow. So for those of you that aren't watching, you saw motorbikes cruising by. I think I saw some napalm falling from the skies, or
even one of those like little rickshaw things.
Yeah. I only ever see those outside the baseball game downtown.
Yeah.
There's usually a white guy riding it who's very fit, who wants my money. You know, I've only taken one of those rickshaw things once or twice. One time was in Tempe, your neck of the woods. I think it was the 4th of July. And we hopped on a rickshaw, and the guy rode us back to our car. So we gave him like, $5. Thanks a lot. Have a nice day, because it was 1,000 degrees outside anyway. The second time on a rickshaw was in New Orleans almost a year ago, or like a year ago now, actually, almost exactly a year ago. And this dude gave us a tour of New Orleans on a rickshaw. And New Orleans is a very small town. I had no idea how small New Orleans actually is. And apparently, after the hurricane, like New Orleans was, well, it was decimated, right? But it went from a population of like 700,000 down to like 60,000, which is like the size of a WrestleMania, like a WrestleMania event at a stadium. That's crazy.
It's still that sparse.
It's come back, but I think it's still only like 150,000 now. So I couldn't imagine. I mean, the city seemed fairly crowded when I was there a year ago. I couldn't imagine there being 6 times that many people living there. Like that would have been insane. So I'm glad I'm going back. I do not know if the Sober Happy Hour will be able to do a double remote broadcast from New Orleans. If Robinson is back by then we should be able to do a Sober Happy Hour. If Robinson is not back, then we probably won't be able to do a show that week, simply because there won't be any way for us to remote into the Radio Valencia system I won't be lugging my iMac to New Orleans. If I had a laptop, and maybe that's in the cards in the near future here, but right now I am with a desktop and no laptop, and you can't run the remote broadcasting software from an iPad. So the way I was able to do the broadcast from Las Vegas a few months ago was because Robinson went into the studio in San Francisco. And that's how we got the broadcast happening when I was not at my normal location. So Robinson will be back later after apparently he and a friend get some groceries and make it back to her house or his hotel. And if there's an internet connection, he should be able to get back on. It won't be quite as loud, and he'll be able to join the conversation. But until then, it'll be me and you, buddy.
Alrighty.
So I know that we had a little follow-up to last week's conversation. Last week we talked about, I titled the episode USA Fail. And the little sub-caption was, addiction is ravaging our military veterans. That was, to me, that was like the fact of the show. The 60% of veterans suffering from a substance abuse problem number. That was, to me, the fact of the show. So I know that you had a quick follow-up. We discussed it off air for a moment before we went live. And I'd love for you to fill us in. What could you add to that military conversation?
Well, we were talking about the VA, the Veterans Administration, and you know, I guess it must be kind of an urban myth or something that it's, quote, free healthcare. I was speaking with a woman who was a veteran this week, and she was talking about her, how much she owed in her medical payments or her, doctor's bills and stuff to the VA. And I was like, okay, please forgive my ignorance, but, I thought it was, paid for. She's like, oh, no, not at all. So, yeah, there are.
I say that a lot. Please forgive my ignorance.
Yes,
I say that often.
In my field, I pretty much open any new conversation with that. But so there are copays involved, and the copays are often based on a sliding scale fee based on your income.
Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, blah.
Please don't try.
I will not.
Bad radio.
So essentially, I guess it must be an urban myth that it is free healthcare because, well, of course they pay for it with their service, but monetarily wise, it's almost exactly like any other health plan.
Is it free for some people? Like the poor, the homeless, the destitute?
I don't know. I mean, if they've got a sliding scale and your income is 0,
you'd be pretty far down the scale.
Or it wouldn't be free.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
if anyone knows, go ahead and write us.
Please write us. We'd love to know if you're a veteran and you've been to the VA, and whether it's to a hospital or to a primary care physician who accepts that insurance. I don't even know if it works that way. I don't even know if, like, is it like Medicare where you can go to any doctor that accepts that particular type of insurance, or is it more like Kaiser Permanente where you have to go to a Kaiser Permanente facility to have your medical needs covered by that particular healthcare provider? Which I always thought, I never understood the healthcare system in the United States when I was growing up, because my parents, for one reason or another, they always had Kaiser Permanente insurance for the family, and I think that was through my father's job. And so there was always the Kaiser building that you would go to for your treatments. Robinson is back. Hello, Robinson. I think he's on like a fucking scooter or something. I'm gonna mute him.
Yes, he's on.
Very loud. All right, I muted him.
Zooming through the streets of Vietnam.
But it appears he is on a scooter.
Yes.
And he is scootering. This is very interesting. We're getting a tour. If anyone is watching, what you are seeing currently, besides Vietnamese people on scooters and power lines overhead, is our co-host Robinson scootering through the streets of Vietnam. Very cool. Man, those streets are narrow, huh, Chaz?
No shit.
And people are just driving on whatever side they want and stopping on the side of the road, and people are walking in the middle of the street, and he's behind some weird Toyota I don't recognize. And there are...
Look at those buildings. I mean,
yeah. Tall buildings and small buildings and tree houses and cafes. This area right here looks a lot like...
Ooh, that's a big, massive building. Yeah.
This looks like kind of up like Coal Valley, San Francisco, almost, with the trees and the old buildings.
Yeah, dude, he's got to be on a fucking scooter, man.
Yeah, he's
zooming around.
Yeah. So now he's turning right. Wow. Well, I know this is terrible radio because no one else can see this. That's why I was trying to be descriptive. And now he's headed toward what appears to be an intersection, trying not.
Dude, he just nearly slammed into those people.
He's clearly been in Vietnam for a while because he is reckless. He has no regard for the pedestrians whatsoever. And there are other scooters like zooming in front of him. Oh, he's part of a scooter pack. All right, be careful.
Dude, yeah.
I hope they're not going to commit a crime. I've seen Sons of Anarchy, man. That shit's intense. And now there's a Ford pickup truck in front of him carrying a bunch of chickens. Well, this is very interesting. I'm definitely distracted by this. I hope he's not trying to talk to us or anything, because we certainly can't hear him because I muted the sound because it was way too loud.
Yeah, it's like buzzing and shit like that.
I probably could unmute him, and if I were to do that, I could turn the volume down. Nope. I think he can only unmute himself. Oh, well. All right. Well, let's continue our conversation. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
So, what I was saying before Robinson's interesting Vietnamese tour came about was that I didn't fully understand the American healthcare system when I was growing up, because I always had healthcare through a particular insurance company called Kaiser. And for those that aren't familiar with Kaiser Permanente, it's a very, very large healthcare provider. But the way that it functions is they have their network is not like most other insurances where you can go to any doctor that accepts that insurance or go to any hospital that accepts that insurance and then present them with your insurance card and have that procedure or that doctor's visit or whatever covered, at least not very easily unless you're out of town. So you would go to the doctor but you would go to the Kaiser facility, the compound, and there would be these huge complexes of doctors and specialists and treatment centers and hospitals, and it would all be in this one complex. So for me, going to the doctor meant going to this complex and then finding the appropriate room or building or suite for the particular reason that you were there for. And then when I got older and I was no longer part of my parents' insurance plan and got, regular Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance in my early 20s, I realized, oh, you have to pick a doctor. You get to decide where you want to go, and as long as that doctor accepts your insurance plan for reimbursement for their services, you can go there. And what was interesting was that there are doctor's offices that are these really hole-in-the-wall, almost seedy little office buildings that have one or two little old rundown rooms or whatever. Some small doctor's offices are definitely not fancy, and they may have great doctors working there, but I was so used to this weird system that is atypical, and I'm wondering if the Veterans Administration is a similar type facility where you have a VA complex and you go see your doctor there, or if VA health insurance is accepted at other doctor's offices. Do you happen to know the answer to that question, Chaz?
No, but if I was to speculate, I'd say it was probably more similar to the Kaiser plan. That's why they have VA hospitals, VA doctors and stuff.
Yeah.
It is its own health network. And I don't know exactly how other doctors, if they do contract with the VA, provide services outside of it. But yeah, I think it's more like Kaiser.
Got it. Which would make sense because then it can keep kind of closer control of it.
Well, if you've ever been to any of the the facilities in Tucson, the VA hospital there is just massive.
Now they call it a VA hospital, but are regular primary care doctors working in this complex as well, that's where you go to see your doctor, or is it strictly a hospital type environment?
When I've been there, from what I've visited and done some events there and stuff, it's not just a hospital like any other general hospital. I think it is more. It does have doctors' offices and things like that there.
Got it. So that does sound similar to the Kaiser type style situation.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that was our update to last week's show, where we may have been talking like dodo heads about the healthcare system for our veterans, which makes it slightly even more frustrating, simply because I know that there are specialists in the field of addiction recovery. There are even doctors who refer to themselves now, holy shit, what is that?
Damn.
As
we love you long time.
Addictionologists, addiction specialist doctors, and I have to wonder if the VA has addiction specialists in these VA hospitals. And
I'm quite certain they do. I'm pretty certain they do.
They may, but I wonder, you're limited. Your choices have to be limited then. There's no way that you are going to have the kind of choices that you have in the American system where, like I had a doctor that I would go to and have my stuff taken care of by this particular doctor, but he didn't work for one insurance company. He didn't work for one healthcare provider. He is his own doctor, and he accepted my insurance, and I could see him, and I chose him. I seek him out. Whereas if the VA has their own addiction specialists, maybe you would be limited in your options for doctors to use. Can you hear Robinson?
No, I've
Got it. So
mute.
if I mute him, does it mute it for you too?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. So when I muted him, you could no longer hear him either.
Yeah, I don't hear him at all.
He's talking right now, but he doesn't know that he's muted. I wish I had a way of signaling to him that he's muted. I'm going to maybe write it on
like that.
piece of paper or something that says, "You're muted. You are muted." I hope he doesn't read it as "you have mutated." You.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
You're.
Oh, he's making the same sound or the same. Yeah, he can't hear us either.
Because it's too loud. You're muted.
Oh, now he.
Oh, now he knows. Okay,
yeah, he knows. He knows. Okay, I know. Yeah, I got that.
I'm glad he knows. I'm a good lip reader. But he can hear us.
Mm-hmm.
Speak with your hands. All right.
Yeah, right.
Perfect. That's all he knows in sign language. That's American Sign Language. This is a family program, Robinson. God damn it. Keep your middle fingers to yourself. I'm impressed. I'm very impressed. If you weren't on Wi-Fi and you were on a cellular connection driving through town like that, I'm very impressed that the connection maintained the entire time that we got that wonderful tour of what appeared to be a much smaller, much scarier version of Coal Valley in San Francisco. That's what you were driving through, kind of the upper Haight district of Vietnam. And we saw one blonde hooker, I assume it was a hooker, that took Chaz's attention, just took his attention away. Chaz could no longer focus on what we were talking about because we saw a tall blonde from behind, and now that I think about it, it was probably a man.
Yeah, probably.
But hey, that's another show.
Yeah.
And now he's frozen with a smug look on his face. Anyway. He's laughing. There he goes. He's moving again. All right. I thought for a moment that he had been frozen in time. So, whenever you're ready to unmute yourself, please feel free to do so. I think he was going to get some headphones, or else we would get a nasty feedback thing going on, and that's never good.
I can unmute myself. I apologize for that.
There you are, Robinson.
We hear you.
Okay. I could hear you guys the whole time.
Oh, I know, but I even made you a sign. It said you're muted.
I knew I was muted, but I didn't unmute myself from my cell phone.
I see. Yes. Oh, you didn't know how.
Yeah.
I think
just figured it out.
Chaz ran into that problem a long time ago where I think it was not very intuitive to just tap the screen or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That was like the first episode I think we did with it, and I was like, I can't get back.
I've locked myself out and I don't know how to use the keys. So,
Mhm.
Robinson, how is your trip going, my friend? How long have you been there now?
This is by far the worst trip so far.
Nice.
I'm so stressed out that I'm actually getting blisters on my lip. So,
What's so stressful about it, my friend? Tell me, please tell us. We want to make it better for you.
first of all, I didn't make a whole lot of money before I came, so I came here with little money, and after making all of my hotel reservations and flights and all, okay, so I got to the airport. Everything was pretty good, but I got the airport at like at midnight, but I couldn't check into my Airbnb room until like at least like noon or maybe 10 o'clock in the morning. So I wasn't about to go and like check into another hotel just to wait a few hours. So I just plugged in my phone into a charger and took a nap at the airport. And I was awoken a few minutes later, no, maybe about an hour later, by the police telling me that, holding my phone, saying, "Is this your phone?" And I said, "Yes, that's my phone. And could you come with me, please?" So I went with him, and somebody had stolen my phone while I was sleeping,
Shit.
like literally right next to my head. I'm like almost hugging it. It was so close. But he
Yeah.
stole it. He also went into the bag and stole my toilet bag with all my shampoos and toothbrush and all that stuff. And so
He's trying to
I
steal
spent
your
the next
DNA,
4
man.
hours. Yeah.
Mm.
I spent the next maybe 4.5 hours at the police station while they were filling out reports, and then they had, this was all not really the police station, but the airport security, and I had to wait for the police to change shifts so the police could come, and then we had to fill out a whole new set of reports and questions, and then could you repeat that? Could you sign this? And he had stolen 2 other phones because there were 2 other people there as well. And
Do you have like an interpreter or anything like that, or did they speak English?
there was one guy who spoke English with a stutter. And so after that, I got my assistant came and picked me up, and my phone wouldn't work because it needed to be unlocked. And they told me at Metro, when you go to Vietnam, you don't have to unlock your phone. You just throw a SIM card in there, and it's good to go. Well, that's not the
That's
case.
not true.
So
Yeah.
after I left my SIM card at home for Vietnam, so I had to buy a new SIM card, and then I had to go and pay money to have my phone unlocked. And this is all over the course of several hours. And also, I'm driving around trying to find my Airbnb hotel, and the address is wrong. And I finally decide to call the guy. I have, my assistant calls because she speaks the language, and he tells her that he rented the room out to someone else. So now I have no room and all this luggage that I'm carrying around. And,
Well, yeah, 35 days, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I had a huge suitcase. So it's not like a little bag I can just throw on the motorcycle. I had to rent a cab and have her follow me on her motorcycle.
Jesus.
Or actually on my motorcycle. We finally, after a bunch of running around, finally got a hotel room.
Is that where you are now?
I got some. No. That was all yesterday. No, I'm sorry, that was the day before yesterday. And then yesterday, I had to go back to the airport and go to Hanoi. So that's where I am now. You've just seen the streets of Hanoi, much nicer than Saigon, Ho Chi Minh.
It looked very nice.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I like it here because there's a lot more trees, a lot more shade, and it just smells good, and the people are nicer. It's just altogether a cleaner place.
Is it more expensive?
No, it's not the same. Everything's the same.
So, if you don't mind me asking.
It's like the difference between living in Los Angeles and San Francisco.
Okay. If you don't mind me asking, are you currently in your long-term hotel where you'll be for a while? Or are you in sort of a temporary holdout?
6 days.
6 days where you are right now?
Yeah, I'm going to be in this hotel room for 6 days. And I'm here. I had to come to Hanoi because I have some business negotiations to do with skincare products and importing infant milk from Australia.
Are you smuggling stuff?
No, none of that stuff. But
only spam.
Skincare products are a big demand here. Good quality ones. Everything is coming from China, and it's not good. Lots of chemicals and preservatives. So I can bring quality, skincare products, and so I've got a partner. We're working together on that. She also wants to import this baby formula. Not baby formula, but it's like it's powdered milk that apparently tastes like human milk. I don't know how they do it or what they do, but I don't even know what human milk tastes like. But she's got the whole market lined up, and she's going to sell it not to the general public, but she's selling it to schools. So she's got a hookup on that, which is really good. That means like that she doesn't have to worry about sales. She'll just get accounts, and they will just buy it.
Right.
And wants me to go into business with her, but that means I have to come up with some investment capital. So I'll be putting out a call for some help on that.
Very cool. Give us a quick looky-loo at the hotel that you're staying in.
Okay, it's very small. I'd say it's 7 feet wide.
Okay.
And maybe 14 feet long. Very, you can see the ceiling. There's wires where there used to be a light switch. There's nice curtains and a window that looks out into another building. There's the bathroom. I want to show you the bathroom. Let me turn the light on here.
Sure. I'm taking my headphones off for 1 minute. Wait, the bathroom is like a room with a shower head.
Yes, there's no shower in the bathroom. The bathroom is the shower with a toilet and a sink.
So the whole room is the bathroom. It's literally a bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And this is interesting, every toilet has one of these little things that you can generally see at a kitchen sink. So part of every toilet is a little. I think it's for cleaning the toilet, or maybe for cleaning your bum after after dropping the kids off at the pool.
Yes.
And so that's kind of like a typical bathroom everywhere. It's tile all the way around.
With a drain in the middle?
And the door, yeah, the drain is on the floor on the other side of the toilet. The door has a rubber seal on the door as well as the door frame, so it's like a double seal. So if you needed to, you could plug the drain and fill the room up and just sit on the floor and take a bath. No, I'm just kidding.
No, right.
So,
but it's good.
There's a
good place to
see that?
dismember a body.
What? That's it.
That's an outlet.
You're looking at my one outlet in my whole hotel room.
For power.
That's it. That's what I get.
It's an interesting shape.
I can plug in my phone, or I can plug in the computer, or I can charge something, but that's all.
You should go to the hardware store. Get a power strip.
I'm going to do that. And this is my stairwell here. And you can look out my window. This is looking down the street.
Uh-huh. So what we're looking at is some somebody has an air conditioning units. And
Yes.
every
All,
building is a different shape.
all the devices that create fluorocarbons throughout Vietnam.
Yeah.
Well, it's like an MC Escher painting. I mean, it's just all over the place.
Yeah, everything's very different shape, different colors.
Yes. It's
Very
colorful
cool.
but dingy at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking out the window here next door, and this is a typical roof of someone's apartment or house. I mean,
Laundry day.
yeah, it's like a patio on the roof. See over there? There's another one up there.
Hell yeah.
All the patios are on the roof.
Well, they gotta build up.
You
Yes.
could go running across the rooftops. That'd be so
Hell
cool.
yeah.
Like ninja style.
Be like straight out of a Mission Impossible movie.
Yeah.
It reminds me of what was that film? Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, thank you for showing us around. That's actually very neat. And now you will have a forever memory of your 6-day stay at your apartment/hotel there in Hanoi.
The Blue Bell Hotel in Hoan Kiem, which is a really nice lake. Very small lake, but
Fishing,
okay, so I'm
boating.
log on to the computer now and get off my phone.
All right, then we will see you in a moment. I'm having a little air conditioning issue right now. My air conditioner water reservoir is full, so it shuts off the compressor when that happens until I empty it, and it's starting to get rather warm in this room. So maybe what we can do, Chaz, is take an early break.
Okay.
Take an early music break, and I can empty my tank. Robinson can log on via his computer, and we'll listen to a tune, and then we will start our regularly scheduled program about the topic that we wanted to discuss in the first place. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
All right, so right now you are listening to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast, coming to you live from Vietnam, ladies and gentlemen. Viet-fucking-Nam. That's what the locals call it. And we're going to play a little tune for you. We've never played it before. I hope it doesn't suck. And it's a relatively long song, hopefully long enough for me to empty my tank. I'm going to mute you, Robinson, so that you don't accidentally ruin...
I'm going to hang up here.
Okay, well then we'll see you in a few minutes.
Okay.
All right, you're listening to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast on radiovalencia.fm and streaming to you live on YouTube. This is a song called Someone Else's. It is very old and was recorded, funny story, was recorded at the 4th Street Recording Studio in Santa Monica. That my claim to fame is that is the same recording studio that Fiona Apple recorded her first album at. Incubus recorded their first couple of albums there as well. And Chris Lord-Alge was the producer there for a really long time. And so John Bryan recorded stuff there with Fiona Apple. And the piano that you hear in this recording is the same piano that Fiona Apple played on her debut album, Tidal, which was very, very cool to get to play that piano for this track. So we recorded it in the middle of the night one night quite a few years ago, and it was never fully finished. It has never been fully mixed down or mastered, but it still sounds halfway decent, and I thought I'd play it for you. This is a song called Someone Else's, and this is the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast, and we hope that you enjoy.
And I wonder what you see, or maybe sometime is all you need. Rushed won't help us. And I'm tired of waiting, lonely, still driving me insane. All I want is you. And you're awake while you're dreaming, but you still light up when you see me. There's tears in my eyes just from breathing, 'cause I'm in love with someone else's girl. So I sit here, I'm waiting, anticipating your return. Won't you come back soon? And I'm trying out sleeping, my cold sheets remind me you're not here. Fall asleep with me, and I know you're pretending it's cold. I say nothing, not to my mind can tell it's you. So I'm waiting, so tired, can't say when I'll be back here. And I you wake while you're dreaming, but you still light up when you see me. And there's tears in my eyes just from breathing, 'cause I'm in love with someone else's girl. But you still light up when you see me. There's tears in my eyes just from breathing, 'cause I'm in love with someone else's girl.
This is the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast, coming to you live from RadioValencia.fm, 87.9 on your radio dial in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we are broadcasting live from Phoenix and Tempe, Arizona, as well as Hanoi, Vietnam. So that was a song that I was telling you about earlier. But if you joined us halfway through that song, you might be wondering, what's the deal with that song? Well, I'm not going to repeat myself, but let's just say it was a pretty cool experience to get to record that song at a pretty cool studio, in a pretty cool town, on a really cool piano, and one of the only songs recorded by the now Sober Happy Hour famous band Arbor Circle, with yours truly on the harmonica, also known as the mouth harp. And it was an improvised harmonica solo that night. I'm going to be honest, while we were recording that song, there was quite a bit of tequila involved. And unfortunately, I don't have the greatest recollection of actually recording that song. It makes me sad. I have regrets about not really remembering the entire experience later in the evening. And Robinson is apparently being visited by the vibrator gods. And he's a very popular man. His phone goes off often. And we're seeing now the side of your face, Robinson, which means camera 1, camera 2, camera 1, camera 2. So Chaz is still muted. He's eating. Robinson is in Vietnam. You can't hear me?
Hey, Mike?
I can hear you.
Can you... I know, but I can't hear you. I don't know why, but can you accept my request for the laptop?
You're on, both of them.
I'm not getting you, though. But I'm only seeing one.
I see both. I can eject your other one. Why don't
I'm going to try to log out and log back in again.
Let me boot both of yours, and then you can just log right back in.
I know you're talking to me, but I can barely hear you.
That's all right. I just ejected him. Kind of felt good. All right. So as we experiment with the Robinson in Vietnam, I am going to introduce our topic for the evening. And the topic is, again, two weeks in a row, it's going to be a little controversial. I think we referred to it earlier as incendiary. Quite possibly a topic that could potentially get us some hate mail. I am looking forward to that. I'm going to be honest. You have not made it in the talk radio world until you have received hate mail, and you have like a top 10 show in this environment when you receive death threats. So I'm looking forward to that in the future. And so the topic that we wanted to talk about is probably not a topic that you would expect to hear on the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast, because we at the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast are pretty open-minded about addiction recovery treatment of all sorts. We do not pigeonhole ourselves as a 12-step only type treatment option program. The word program didn't fit very well in that, because you referred to 12-step programs as the program or working a program, but it's 1 o'clock in the morning and it's all I could come up with. So we do not subscribe to just one or two types of treatment. We see the benefit and we see the flaws in all of the treatment programs that exist for addiction recovery. And I'll be honest, I think we all agree that there is not a one-size-fits-all approach to recovery. Some people are going to do really well with the 12-step program. Others, an intensive outpatient program, perhaps an inpatient rehab program, maybe a spiritual program, perhaps a self-guided, I'm just going to lead a better life and white knuckle it through the beginning stages and figure my shit out on my own program, or a program of relationships and the support of other addicts and alcoholics in recovery type program. All of them have their benefits. All of them have their flaws. All of them have their fans, their advocates, and their what do you call them? Somebody that, Chaz, what do you call somebody that doesn't agree with you? Like a naysayer.
Oh, contrarian.
Like a skeptic. Like we understand that all of these different types of treatment program have their pros, have their cons, have their goods, have their bads, have their successes and wins, and their failures where they fall short. So we don't subscribe to any one individual program type or recovery treatment option. So we'd like to be open-minded. And this particular topic, I think will prove that once and for all. We have had people in the past say, oh, your host guy, he's a 12-step guy and that's all he's interested in. And, that first episode, what is a meeting, or, recovery options in the 21st century. There's these episodes and he talks more about the 12-step programs than anything else. And the reason for that is because I personally got sober in a 12-step program. So I know I have a lot of personal experience in 12-step programs. I myself have been through 12-step programs. I have been to 12-step meetings in many, many places. So I know a lot about it. It worked very well for me and a lot of other people that I've encountered and worked with. So yeah, I'm pretty up on 12-step programs. And I'm pretty positive on them as well. Now, the topic tonight is almost the complete opposite of that way of thinking. AA, 12 steps. Fact, fiction, or just faulty? That's, I think, what I'm going to title this episode, Chaz. I don't usually talk about the title of the episode in the episode because I don't usually come up with the title of the episode until after the episode is over. But I
like that. I like the title that you had on the, when you texted it to me just a couple hours ago. And that was, after 75 years, does AA really work?
Yeah.
I liked that title.
I fear
the other one, the one that you just mentioned, actually sounds, in my opinion, that sounds worse.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I believe you. I trust you. You are my trusted advisor. So we will go with the original top. Oh, that's probably Robinson calling. I'm not sure what he's trying to do here. I can't answer that call. But what I can do, I don't know how to stop that sound from happening. Please stop sound. Okay, it stopped. I'm going to send him an invitation because he clearly doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, I couldn't hear anything.
You didn't hear that? Oh, you know why? That's because I'm through system sounds is what goes out, and it's that calling sound, the be doo 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 ding, be doo 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 ding, and it's not pleasant.
No.
I like the Skype calling sound. It's kind of old school. Anyway, hopefully he gets that invitation and he can join us and he doesn't try to call me back again the way that he just did, because I have absolutely no way of
Mm-mm.
I think we're about to hear ourselves. You hear that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. I got to turn that shit off. Okay. All right. Well, we'll see what he does. All right. 12-step programs. For the birds or for actual addicts and people that need a way out? There's a book.
Mm.
And I don't know when we turned into the type of program that referenced freaking books so much. You'd think we were
I know.
intellectuals. And we certainly know that's not true. But there's a dude. He's a doctor. His name is Dr. Lance Dodes. Remember we talked about that earlier? It's Dodes. I mean, Dodes, Dodes, dude.
Dudes.
So we'll call him Lance Dodes. Dr. Dodes. He's from Southern California, man. It's Dr. Dodes.
What?
I had a wicked bad heroin problem, dude, so I went and saw Dr. Dodes. Yeah. He's the shit, brah. So he's the former director of Harvard's substance abuse treatment unit at McLean Hospital. And he wrote a book. God bless him. He wrote a book called The Sober Truth, Debunking the Bad Science Behind 12-Step Programs and the Rehab Industry. So right there, let's be real, on its face, that is kind of a very intentional title to this book. It is meant to spur up certain feelings. It might get 12-steppers a little defensive right off the bat. And it might make the anti-12-steppers want to spend $30 and buy his book. I think there's...
Well, I think there's a little bit of a flaw in his premise. And again, this isn't really going to defend one way or another. But talking about like the bad science behind 12-step, I don't exactly remember when 12-step was a science.
Good point.
You know, in other words, I mean, I'm going to read from the big book here in a few minutes, you know, kind of let Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob kind of speak for themselves insofar as how well they see their program working. But as far as Dr. Dodes is going,
Dodes!
As far as he's talking, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. You know, what the science behind, I don't know. 12-step is it's peer support, it's group therapy, and it's also, you know, kind of a on your own daily life applying this, like it's a philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not science.
Right.
So I don't know where this science would come from that he's trying to debunk. The only place I could think of are places, there's certain national organizations and such that are, they have their own philosophical roots in 12-step, and they kind of go out of their way to at least back up scientifically. But 12-step itself isn't a science.
And it's never claimed to be.
No.
Right?
Right.
So I love your way of thinking about stuff like that. I always enjoy, because you take just the title of his book and you're able to just immediately shed some light on the bullshit behind it. And I don't mean that, I don't know this Lance Dodds. I don't know him at all. I don't know what his agenda is. I don't know if he has an agenda. I don't know if he believes strongly in what he writes about, or if this is an idea that he had that he came up with one fine day and then went searching for evidence to back up his theories. I don't know. So
Well, yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, you could kind of think of it like, think of an equivalent, debunking the science behind Buddhism or debunking the science behind the Bible. It's like there are some people who go and try to do that stuff. And so if you wanted to debunk that type of thing, you could do it to those kind of assumptions and those kind of justifications. But the thing itself, though, is the bad science doesn't reflect on it.
Right.
But I've got here.
I want to update you. Just quick update on Robinson. So remember how last time he was in Vietnam and it told him that he had been blocked from he thought that I had blocked him from the show. Remember that?
Yep.
And I argued that I didn't even know how to do that. Because I don't. Not gonna lie. I couldn't block you if I wanted to. He is experiencing the exact same thing again this time. So I am convinced thoroughly that Google Hangouts, at least in the format of this live hangout on air that we create every week, is preventing him from connecting. And that's why over a cellular connection on his phone, it worked just fine. But when he connected to the hotel Wi-Fi and he's on a computer and he's trying to get through, I think he's being filtered and it's not letting him on. So I've told him to try to get back on his phone and see if he could, plug in some headphones with a microphone like you've got, and that would be better than nothing. But I find it very interesting that an on-air program from Vietnam that broadcasts to the United States seems to be getting blocked.
Usually it's the other way around.
Well, but if you think about it, let's say he was, he was
buying.
No, let's say that he had some Vietnamese citizens in his hotel room and he was trying to interview them on the air for some American radio show. They might not think highly of that.
No.
So who knows? But I think it's interesting that we have no problems like this when he's on American soil.
Who knows? Maybe we have some Vietnamese, secret police fans now. They love listening into us.
That's very possible. And they disagree with everything that we're saying. So they're blocking his access to the show. All right. Well, we're going to proceed.
Or they just don't like Robinson.
That's very possible. They feel, what is this old man doing in our country every couple of months? He comes here and he does things. I don't know. What does he do there? Like he comes and
sells cosmetics.
Tries to sell us breast milk, and he flirts with our young women, and he's very tall. We resent that. And he has this tow-headed friend named Mike that likes to call us dinks, and we resent that also. Anyway,
okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's get back. We'll get back on track here. We have derailed completely, like beyond derail at this point. This was like
so
an Amtrak train in New York City a few months ago. Was that in New York? Pennsylvania? I don't remember where it was. Where'd that train derail? Where that dude took the corner going 100 miles an hour?
I have no idea.
It wasn't.
I didn't even hear about it.
You didn't hear about it? Holy crap!
No,
It's like a big
I
deal.
live under a rock, dude. I don't fucking hear that shit at all.
Well,
if it's not from RT on my Facebook feed, it doesn't happen.
you need to get the breaking news app on your.
No, I don't.
No, it's great.
It's news. I hate news.
No, it's not really news though. It's just like whatever people are like tweeting about and Facebooking about, and when shit gets real, it ends up on this breaking news app, and like you find out about stuff that you wouldn't normally find out about, and it's like way before it hits any of the major news outlets. Like I remember just the other day when that shooting happened, the Marines that got killed. I heard about it on my breaking news app within a few minutes of it happening, like real time. And I was checking CNN and NBC and all these other news apps and outlets and websites, and there was nothing for at least 30 or 40 minutes. But I had seen a bunch of updates on the breaking news app before those websites had anything about it. So it's really interesting.
That's actually, yeah, that is cool.
You might check it out. It's pretty cool. Anyway, so 12-step programs. The book is called The Sober Truth, Debunking the Bad Science Behind 12-Step Programs and the Rehab Industry. Again, to Chaz's point, I'm not sure that Bill W. Ever claimed any science behind the 12-step program. It is a spiritual program. It is a program based on spirituality and the group conscious and group conscience and sponsorship, and
it's based on relationships,
right? And based on relationships with other addicts and alcoholics, based on relationship with yourself and creating a better relationship with yourself, and a higher power. And a lot of people refer to the higher power part of it as, God, and that's where, it can turn a lot of people off. Even Robinson, when he first started coming on this show, he had this negative perception of the 12-step program, and he had a relationship with somebody that was turned off by AA and would refer to, the more religious people in the AA group as the God Squad. But then again, I know the person that he was being influenced by, and this was somebody who did not want to get sober, and to this day is still not sober, and just goes back and forth and back and forth, back and forth. And so she would look for any excuse to downplay the 12-step program as something useful or helpful to her, because if she could make it something she didn't like, if she could tell the people in her life that mattered that it was this terrible, awful thing, and they were just trying to force religion down her throat, well, then maybe these people that care about her wouldn't make her go. And there's a lot of people like that. I was like that. I used the religious aspect of AA that doesn't really exist as an excuse to not get involved in AA for years. So I know exactly what that's about.
Well, just for full disclosure, I like to at least try and, present a lot of sides of arguments and everything, and really stay away kind of from, I guess, talking down or bashing or anything, because I know how many people are helped by it, but I myself don't agree with 12-step as far as like an overall philosophy or something. It would, looking at it in my life, it would not help me at all. In other words, by following it, I would not be able to do, and be where I am today. It just it conflicts with my own natural inborn sense of what is real and what is right. But nevertheless, I see what it does for people, and I see that it can work. And so I would never want to, at least, dissuade someone away from it. But
you're also not an in the gutter alcoholic with nothing with nothing. You're like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, so
Hmm.
I respect.
I have heard people though try to apply it to like things like mental health. So I have heard people like say, well, using the 12 step helped me live with bipolar disorder, and when I look at it in that way, I'm like,
But were they
huh?
also an alcoholic?
No.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah.
I'll be the first to say that's
Yeah.
weird.
And I've kind of seen that thrown around a lot in the field that I work in, and it's like, you can't approach everything with the 12 steps,
No,
because
and
there's
well,
just
because here's the difference. If I'm suffering with bipolar disorder, or I'm an alcoholic, and I am trying to manage my bipolar disorder versus trying to manage my alcoholism. With alcoholism, I can either get to a place where I no longer want to drink, therefore I do not drink. With bipolar disorder, it's not a matter of making better decisions. I can't choose to not have a manic episode by not doing something.
well, not taking your meds can do that.
Sure, but there's not meds for alcoholism. Well,
Exactly.
there may be people who tell you that there are. We remember the naloxone that we talked about a few months
Yep.
ago. Take your meds and you won't drink. So I think we can both agree this show as a whole does not subscribe to one form of treatment or another exclusively. We know that there are ups, downs, pros, cons, goods, bads, fill in the blank, to all of the treatment programs. And what if you find something that works for you, or a combination of things that works for you, you have my full support.
And I'd like to jump in right now and read from the big book insofar as how it works.
How
Because
it works.
because that is the title of chapter 5 of the big book. How
Absolutely.
it works.
I could recite it with you, my friend. Go ahead and let's read it for our people.
Well, I'm going to read some excerpts from it.
Okay.
Is that
in every meeting, we read in its entirety how it works.
all right? Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program, usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. If you decided that you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. But there is one who has all power. That one is God.
May you find him now.
And yes, that is an exclamation point at the end of that sentence, ladies and gentlemen. And thereafter it goes into the 12 steps.
And the part that makes people crazy is the capital G in front of God.
I think it's the exclamation point after now.
Perhaps.
really.
But
yeah.
the as you get into the 12 steps of the 12-step program, God is not mentioned.
But in the big book, though, he's everywhere.
Well, but the important part is that in the steps themselves, it refers to a higher power, and
then it calls at step 3, it's God,
right,
and then step 5, Step 5 says God. 6, God. 7, him.
As you understand him.
Him.
That's
It's still
the important. That's the important distinction, though, and that's where the people who want to claim that this is some Christian God, that this is some Bible God, they are the people that either have not been to a 12-step meeting, or they have read what they've and interpreted it the way that they wanted to interpret it. That God as an idea is what turns them off, because the God as you understand it, you have it right in front of you.
Yeah.
How is that? Can you read how that is phrased?
God as we understood him, capital H. And so right here, this is, keep in mind that this was written back in the 20s or something.
1939.
So really, 1939. So really, what this is saying to someone, like say for me, for instance, who is a non-theist, especially non-Western theist, monotheism never appealed to me. This means basically that, yeah, you can think of God however you want, but it's really this singular monolithic male deity, thing. But you can understand him however you want. But that's not really God. This is God over here.
I disagree.
Is kind of the message that sends to
Sure.
people who are not. So I can understand, like, if you said like a higher power as you understand it, and
right. But now we're arguing semantics, and I think that's
can be very important to some people.
Well, it could be a very powerful turnoff to somebody, but that's the thing. If you're gonna read, if you are an alcoholic and you have picked up a big book and you are reading the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous by yourself, then you are doing it wrong. And if you are going to pass your own judgments and draw your own conclusions from reading this literature by yourself, then you are doing it wrong.
Why?
Because the entire idea behind 12-step programs is the group. The program does not function one person on his or her own by him or herself. The reason you have a sponsor, the whole idea behind sponsorship is to help you understand this relatively 1939 written book that tends to be a little misogynistic. It tends to be a little old school because they've updated the big book here and there, but it even at times can come off a little racist. So if you're going to take the big book on its face and you're going to try to read this book without somebody else there to help you understand it, or better yet, to help you understand it in the way that you need to understand it, if that makes sense. Because
it does, but sorry, go ahead.
No, because it's tempting to take this book, read it, translate it into 21st century language and say, this is what it is. But it's different to everyone, just like religion should be different to everyone. And when you take an organized religion like Catholicism or Christianity or the Islamic faith, and you try to shoehorn individuals into what's written in the big book or what's written in the Quran or what's written in the Bible, that's where you come to these really awful, horrible generalizations. there are contradictory things in the literature of these 12-step programs. I understand that. I agree. I agree with that sentiment that it says God as you understand him. And when I said that we were getting into semantics is because if you want to argue that it is pointing its followers down this path of a monotheistic Christian God, if that's the point you're trying to argue, then you could pull information from the book or from the 12 steps or from the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous, and you could make that argument. But if you want to overcome this problem with alcohol or drugs or whatever the case may be, they encourage you to draw your own conclusions, especially when it comes to the spiritual side of things. Yes, part of the program is don't drink. Drinking is what got you into this mess in the first place. But never in my time in AA or the 12-step programs did anybody ever tell me that I had to believe in their idea of what this higher power or God is. Ever.
I would like to kind of go back a little. If you go back and you look at exactly what you were saying, Mike, about, reading the big book by yourself, without someone there to help you with it. That's very almost cult-like. I'm dead serious. You could easily replace big book with Bible or something in there, and it would have. I have heard it spoken the same way of other holy books, and in other words, it comes off as being cultish because it discourages independent critical thinking about it.
How so?
And now, well, in other words, if you can't read it without like someone else there to help you interpret it, that's
hold on. Let me stop
okay.
you for a second. It's
All right.
not a matter of somebody being there to help you interpret it, because this is not somebody trying to understand a concept that's reading a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is somebody trying to overcome an ailment that is incredibly powerful, that will do anything to prevent you getting better from it. So
but how can, in other words, you have to understand the concepts though in order to get the benefit of the program though, don't you?
Absolutely. But what I'm trying to say is, if you're an alcoholic, and every alcoholic will look for excuses and reasons to not get sober, myself included. So by reading the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous by myself and the first few chapters on my own, before I ever entered the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I had drawn my own conclusions and I talked myself out of it. But when I finally got into it and I started to ask some questions like, hey, so I don't like this right here. This makes me feel this way. And somebody else was able to say, aha, I know exactly what you mean. That's not what that is supposed to. That's not what that is. I don't want to contradict what the text is saying, but it's not what it's supposed to mean. What the way you're taking it is not how it's intended to be taken.
Well, and part of the confusion that happens there is, and again, this is another kind of like thing that makes me look at it all a bit sideways, is how whoever it is that owns the copyrights to this thing refuses to update it. or at least retranslate it or change any of the language. I mean, the language in here, yeah, it would be a big turnoff to women, minorities, or people of a certain socioeconomic status,
Or
and
atheists or agnostics or
agnostics.
non-Christians.
Hmm. And for all this, if there's so much confusion, um, with someone, who is reading this and then having to go and get guidance on it, wouldn't you want to update this book and the language in it so that it would be more clear, so that way when a person is looking to get sober, they can read it without all this confusion and having to then go about getting other guidance? Why don't they update this book? Why don't they retranslate it into and explain the concepts?
Abso-fucking-lutely. I agree with you 150%. And this is where the problems with Alcoholics Anonymous shine very brightly. Is we are not governed by a body. We have no one in charge. There is no one person or group of people or a board of directors to make a decision like that. So no decisions get made. And so the idea of taking Captain Bill's writings and changing them is just not something that whomever the people are that were bestowed with the power to keep this thing going, they just don't have the balls to do that. And granted, I wish that they did, because I agree with you. I completely agree with you. At the same time, the idea that if I want to practice Catholicism and I'm going to read, the Bible, the reason that Bible study exists, where it's a group of people who read the Bible and then try to figure out what the hell it's talking about, I think is a similar kind of environment, because there are people who make translations of the Bible to say, Leviticus, whatever, that homosexuality is an abomination. And then there are other Christians who read the exact same part of the Bible and say, no, that's not what it says at all. So
it just seems odd that, constantly, like, making it reference like to a Bible or something. There aren't like different sects within AA
there
necessarily.
are.
Really?
That's where you have
like the God's
CA and NA and all of these interpretations of the 12 steps, where if that aren't they cut out huge sections of the big book that refer only to alcohol. And now they've made their modifications and they've made it more inclusive. And it's not just about alcohol. In Cocaine Anonymous, that started out as Cocaine Anonymous, is now referred to as CA. They've kind of forgotten about the cocaine side of it. And it is all encompassing any substance abuse. If you are not an alcoholic, CA is the better place for you. So there are variations on this, and there have been people who have tried to rewrite the big book in a more modern way, and unfortunately I just don't think it ever really caught on, because it's kind of the Book of Mormon. How do you rewrite something that's supposed to be the end all be all for helping alcoholics not drink anymore?
You really have to think of it in the sense of, okay, when you start speaking of it that way, you really have kind of bought into the whole it's a religion thing.
Absolutely. They're the people that are conducting the meetings and that are on the the board of directors, it's not called that, but you know what I mean,
Hmm.
at particular clubs, they very much treat it like a religion. Now, not religion in terms of the Christian Bible, God and being saved and heaven and hell and blah, 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 but the Bible to them for how to live their life and stay sober and no longer be trapped by their abuse of alcohol. And
You could
go ahead.
you could easily look at what everything you just said there. Sobriety is salvation.
Sure.
Drinking is sin.
Absolutely.
Hell is, in the gutter. Heaven is
Relapse.
sobriety. All these other things have. I mean, really, this thing is and has serves as, even if it wasn't intended, even if it's not intended, it serves as a scripture.
Mhm.
It serves as it is a holy book for some people
It is
because
a
it
sacred
serves,
book to some people.
yes, it serves the same purpose in their lives, and all those things add up together. They all have their co-equivalent across the board. I think the biggest um, drawback there is that it can keep people from getting sober rather than helping them by by refusing to update it, by refusing to change it. I think you run the risk of that
I agree.
because just like with you, how you avoided it forever and ever because of what it said in there. If it had said something more amiable to what you think, and you eventually found your higher power, you eventually found whatever that was. Um, but it was the language in here that turned you off to it.
Absolutely.
So
I guess
I mean,
the
think of it like this: would the Bible like just? Well, then again, never mind. I was gonna say, would the Bible turn you off to God? And I'm like, oh yeah,
yeah.
totally.
And what's funny though is I
Yeah,
guess
yeah,
the,
totally.
the way that people might look at this, and the way that I kind of look at it too, is who the hell am I? And who the hell is anybody to make the decision to change something like this that has claimed to have helped millions of people recover from the horrible existence of alcoholism or addiction? Like, who the hell am I to suggest changing it? And I think that's where you kind of get yourself into that way of thinking, that narcissistic, egomaniacal way of thinking where, you know what, I can do better than this. And there are rehab facilities and treatment programs that have tried to do that. And whether or not they've been successful, I don't know. I know that there are alternative programs that are loosely based on the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, but they don't do it the same way. And then there are opposites that vilify the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And here's this new Bill W who wrote this new scripture. They're just basically, they've become Henry VIII, and they're going to come up with the Church of England, the Anglican Church of sobriety, and but it's a more watered down version of similar but not exactly the same concepts and topics. And we do allow crosstalk in this new program system that I came up with. And you don't have to be, but where does it stop? Oh, you don't have to be completely sober. I mean, that's just silly. And well, we don't like that part where it says that you probably shouldn't have casual sex with women for the first year that you're in recovery. We don't like that part. So we'll take it out. And in my new, my new version of the 12-step program, you know, that part's not in there. And we don't like the Christian God element. So we're going to take out the whole higher power thing altogether. We're going to focus on you not drinking. And like, I guess, who the hell is someone? Who the hell am I? Who the hell are you? Who the hell are they to decide to change something that's been around for as long as it has been? That's, I guess, what the question that I would ask myself.
Well, if you think of it like this, if there's no single unifying body of Alcoholics Anonymous that would have, say, a canon or, you know, an absolute authority over the literature, it would not necessarily be up to someone to change it. Individual or group could have their, in other words, well, the way we see it and the way we understand it, this is how we do it. The way they understand it, that's how those. The big book doesn't need to change. People just need to be able to interpret it and understand it in their own way.
Yeah. And I think that's what they're almost intentionally trying to avoid, because then you will have your club in Tucson that is ultra Christian and religious about it, and then you'll have your group in Hollywood that is super liberal and open-minded about things. And what they have tried to create,
well,
is a similar place for people to go all around the world. And there is a very positive thing about the comfort that you get in knowing that you can go to a meeting anywhere in the world and you're going to have a very similar experience. If they start breaking off and start doing things and interpreting things their own way as a group, I think you could end up fracturing the system entirely.
And the thing of it is, that's the exact same way it is with Catholicism. You could go into any church anywhere in the world and you would hear the same exact sermon that day. They all speak the same thing every time. There's that unity with it, but there's no such thing with Alcoholics Anonymous. In other words, it's supposed to be like that, but there's nothing in place to make sure it is like that.
Sure. And I think
the
looser that they get with it, the better the chance that you don't have that unity. And and speaking from somebody who's been in the earliest stages of sobriety, that consistency is critical. It really is. And that's why they don't have open discussion around the content of the big book. If you want to have a discussion about the big book, then you bust out the 12 and 12, right? If you want to have discussions about sobriety and recovery, people are telling their own personal stories, not interpreting the book in their own individual ways. And when I was talking earlier about having somebody there to help you understand what it is that you're reading, the scary part about it is that this is shit that's been handed down from sponsor to sponsee, who then becomes a sponsor to a sponsee. And a game of telephone is a very real possibility in that kind of community. And the hope is that the same kind of shit that was being talked about 70 years ago, updated for 21st century living and communication, is hopefully the same message that was being taught back then. Hopefully. But there's no way for anybody to know. Because guess what? The two people that started that thing are dead. So there ain't nobody to ask. But I firmly believe that even if somebody were to ask them, they were still alive. They would tell you, I don't know. I have no idea. It was never supposed to become this. This is just me and a handful of alcoholics in my garage trying to stay sober and help each other stay sober. And now it turned into this big mess. I don't know. So with the time that we have left, which isn't a lot of time, there was a little bit about this book that I wanted to touch on. That is that I found very interesting. The idea of AA programs being mandated by the government.
Okay, yeah, that is something I really am against right there.
Right. So you get a
Just
DUI and you want to pay less of a fine, or you don't want to spend time in jail, go to AA for 60 days and bring this paper slip with you, and they have to sign it at the end of the meeting to prove that you were there and you stayed the whole time. And that's going to help you make better decisions about your drinking. That's bullshit. Sorry. I've talked with dozens of these people that were mandated by the court to come to AA. And if anything, they take away from the experience of people who are actually alcoholic or addicted that are trying to get
because they have to be there.
They have to be there. They don't want to be there. They have nothing to contribute. Yes, every once in a while, one of those people has an epiphany and says, holy shit, I'm a total fucked up alcoholic. And this is speaking to me. Most of the time, not the case. They're there to get their paper signed.
Because they drank once, drove a car, and got pulled over. Boom, there they are.
Doesn't mean they have a substance abuse problem, and they so now all the people in AA are a bunch of drunk drivers. Anyway, 164,000 North Americans, so it's the US and Canada, are mandated annually by the court to 12-step programs like AA. 164,000 people who are unwillingly attending meetings on a weekly or daily basis. It's a lot of people. And
well, is it always unwilling? Is it always unwillingly, or can they choose not to and just pay like a bigger fine?
Right, but who the hell is going to choose that?
Yeah.
Go to a free meeting 3 times a week, get a paper signed, and now you've just saved $3,000 or $1,200, or we won't put an ignition interlock device on your car. Yeah, I'll go to the meetings. Thanks.
And I think this is where it kind of gets into the whole thing of, okay, then when the courts and such are asked to say, okay, well, why do you send them to 12-step? And then someone along the line says, well, it's been scientifically proven to work.
Right.
And
prove that.
Exactly.
Show me the science. So
yeah, and again, this is, in other words, the claim that there is science behind 12-step does not come from 12-step.
No, they'll never claim that. They even say in those 12 traditions that it is not. Period. We're not professionals. We don't know what the hell we're doing. We're just trying to get sober, stay sober, help other people get sober. So there are many people that have fought and lost and fought and lost because they believe that mandating an individual to an AA program is unconstitutional because of the religious nature of the program. I don't disagree with that. I mean, if somebody were to force me, somebody from the government were to force me to attend church at a Jesuit church, I would be like, are you fucking kidding me right now? I'm not doing that. I don't believe in this, and you aren't going to make me do it. But we do it with 12-step programs, and I find that very interesting. So one of the largest studies ever conducted found that those who qualified for the diagnosis of addict, quote unquote, that only 25% were still in the same position 1 year later. So if they took 100 people who were diagnosed clinically as addicted, a substance abuser, that in 1 year, only 25% of those people would still be considered an addict with addictive behavior a year later. Okay? And only 25% of those people had any treatment for that addiction whatsoever. How interesting is that? Now, again, this is information coming from a book that could have quite the bias behind it, but this study was not done by the author of this book. This was a much larger study, and I can get more information if people are interested. But I thought that was really interesting that they're talking about, rehab centers are the result of the worst of these addicts who cannot get help. They can't help themselves. They're unable to help themselves. They've failed trying to get sober, so they end up in rehab. And so we look at addicts, right? When we're looking at television programs, reality TV, or people that we see who are the ones that are going to rehab, those are potentially the worst of the worst cases. And it also leads the public to believe that this is a much smaller problem than it really is, because those are the ones that we focus on. Those are the really fucked up stories that we go, oh, that's what an addict is. But doesn't account for the 75% of people who are able to very quietly, very privately get over this problem, whether via a 12-step program or something besides inpatient rehab. So a study by this Dr. Dode advocates what's called psychodynamic treatment, which is kind of a mixture of talk therapy and pharmaceuticals. And we've talked about the pharmaceutical industry being a multi-gazillion dollar industry, and how there's a lot of money to be made off of addiction treatment using drugs. Hey, let's treat your drug problem with more drugs.
A lot of money to be made off of convincing people that they're sick.
Right. And this psychodynamic treatment that is regarded in this book as the one way to do this right, and that 12-step programs are scientifically proven to not work. What was very interesting I'm sorry?
I was going to say, how do you scientifically prove something doesn't work?
Especially when that something is not scientifically proven to work in the first place.
Or isn't scientifically based.
Or isn't scientific. Right.
Yeah, I just don't get it.
Right. This type of psychodynamic treatment, so the mixture of therapy, counseling, drugs, because this person, Dr. Dode, believes that addiction is all psychological. It's all in your brain, which is interesting. We talked about this before the program off air.
Yeah, well, that would be it's all in your mind. If it was in your brain, it would be you could treat it with psych meds. But if it's all in your mind, well, what the hell is he doing? I just
Well, he's referring to it as a compulsion. This is what he does. He's putting it in the same category as OCD. And so you can treat OCD with Prozac. So why can't we treat drug addicts with similar medication? That's what he's aiming toward here. So, unfortunately, this psychodynamic treatment process, out of the 48 accepted forms of addiction, drug addiction, substance abuse treatment that the medical community as a whole, the 48 types of different treatments that exist, this psychodynamic treatment ranks 46th. And 12-step programs like AA rank about, I think, 38th. So still not great. I don't know. I didn't. The study wasn't part of this article. I wish that it was. And I'm very curious, and I'll find out. Number one, what do you think number one would be?
I didn't even know there were like that many to begin with.
I bet it's broken up like very, very specific little individual subcategories of the same effing thing. But yeah, I don't know what number one would be. Dare.
Just not drinking. Number one.
The
not drinking.
Dare program. That's number one.
I don't know.
So if it's 46th in efficacy based on a study, commonly used treatments for addiction recovery, that's not very good, right? So this Doty also fails to mention the success of certain approved medications for addictions. Like, he didn't talk about this in the book at all. So there's buprenorphine, methadone, treatments that have been proven to be more effective than any kind of talk therapy or self-help in terms of saving people's lives from addictions. Like, doesn't even get brought up in this book at all. So the whole thing on its face, maybe it's an interesting read, but for this dude to basically write a book that tries to just exclude 12-step treatment programs on their faces as just ineffective, harmful, he almost is referring to them as being harmful. And as much as you and I may disagree with their how effective they are, and there are definitely some big gaping holes, I agree with you there. It is not a one-size-fits-all. It is not a perfect system. It is definitely not harmful.
No.
Especially for somebody that is really struggling to get clean and sober. Just the simple act of being around other sober addicts in recovery, for some people, myself included, is enough to keep me sober.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would not say harmful at all.
And I am not a big book thumper type,
A person would already have to have some serious, psychiatric or psychological issues and sensitivities and, other vulnerabilities and stuff for it to be harmful to it. But overall, no, I would say it's actually very, very helpful.
I agree with you. So we are coming to the end of the program here. I think we had a pretty good discussion, all things considered.
We did. This was a great
We got
show.
to visit with Robinson just a little bit from Vietnam.
We got to fly through the streets of Hanoi.
We did, on a scooter, no less. Well, you've been listening to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. I am your host. Chaz says hello. Say hello, Chaz.
Hello, Chaz.
We will be back next week on radiovalencia.fm. You can catch a replay of this on youtube.com. Sober Happy Hour is the search keyword. You can go to soberhappyhour.com. You can email us soberhappyhour@gmail.com. Leave a comment. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast. Do whatever you need to do to let us know that you are listening. And if you disagree with everything that we have to say, we want to know about that too. We are also open to show topic ideas and all other things that you might have to say to us. And If you or yours is considering getting sober, I highly recommend it. Have a good night, Jazz.
Good night.
Till next week. Bye-bye.